I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting for Greeneview Local Schools, April 18th, 2024. Please call the roll.
Suzanne Arthur.
Here.
Chris Bailey.
Here.
Jesse Connor.
Here.
Scott Powers.
Present.
Megan Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We can stand for the pledge of allegiance. The pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Second. Second.
Chris.
Whoever.
Mrs. Arthur.
Yes.
Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Mrs. Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to extend an invitation for public participation on agenda items only.
Tonight, I didn't write down which agenda item it is, I'm sorry. There's a new position that you're being asked to consider called Library and Digital Media Coordinator. And I have some questions that I want to ask so that hopefully there'll be some public discussion on your guys' part later on when you get to that, the agenda. Number one, I'm assuming that this position is being funded by the Jamestown Foundation grant, and if so, then I wondered how long that grant is good for, or is this going to be like a 2-year thing and then we have to absorb that cost? My second question deals with why we're creating this position at an administration level versus doing it as a teacher level. And if we're going to do it as an administrator, well, then they also get the same benefits that we provide to our other administrators as far as insurance and STRS. Then reading through the job description, it wasn't clear to me. I mean, I know that they're overseeing the labs and trying to coordinate with teachers and students, but it wasn't clear to me, are they also then teaching a class or two? Like that wasn't clear in the job description. And again, if they're teaching, then we have a person on staff that already gets a stipend to do the makerspace and print signs and all that sort of stuff. So will that wind up effectively eliminating that for staff that we already have? And then also, where is this going to be housed? There's some speculation that the current library at the high school might be being reworked to become an actual makerspace. And I know in this day and age, we use technology an awful lot, but as educators, there's still a place for libraries. My wife works in the library system and it's still going strong with books. When we do research projects at the lower levels, yes, we use the internet for sources, but we also make our students use book resources. So I would hate to see the library get minimized even more than what it currently is. It may not get as much use with high schoolers, but so those are some questions that I have that I would hope you would consider before you just approve this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Do we have any other public participation on agenda items only? Hearing none, we will move forward. Agenda item number 2, presentation, none. Agenda item number 3, treasurer's report. A, approve the minutes of the regular board meeting, March 21st, 2024. B, approve the March financial reports. C, approve March month-end advances. D, approve amended appropriations for March 2024. E, approve the cost of high school summer school student registration of $150 for summer of 2024. F, approve donations as listed. $1,000 from Douglas and Barbara Harlow for the new Derek Buford Harlow Scholarship. $80,000 from the Jamestown Area Foundation for the many wishes and needs for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math at Greeneview High School and Middle School. These funds are given through the Jamestown Area Foundation from donations from Neil West. G, approve treasurer's report items A through F as presented.
Anyone have any questions on anything?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mrs. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith,
Yeah.
and Mrs. Arthur.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Agenda item number 4, superintendent's update. A, teaching and learning. B, facilities. C, operations.
Thank you. I wanted to share with you that we did have kindergarten registration last week, and we had almost 100 students register, which is, I think, one of the largest numbers we've probably had in a long time, at least to register that early. So maybe we have a good routine now and they know to get in early, or we're anticipating probably a little bit larger of a kindergarten class this year. OST testing, our state end of course testing started last week at the middle school, and as of today, actually all grade levels tested today in the district. So we're in the middle of testing season in April. We're also, believe it or not, already planning for the 2024 and 2025 school year, especially as it relates to professional learning. We have a new math adoption, K-12. We also have state mandated, but also good timing for us with literacy professional learning to plan for next year as well. We will be able to offer summer boost programming this year again, and it will be paid for this year through the Reaching All Students Through Literacy Grant. That had previously been paid through ESSER grant dollars, and this year we will use grant funds through the literacy grant to be able to fund that. It is for students entering grades 1 through 5. Again, it will be held at the middle school Monday through Friday, the June 3rd through June 21st from 9 to 12. Registration is free to all students, and we will push that out. It'll be posted on April 24th, which is a Wednesday. Students will be able to review essentially the essential understandings, priority standards in math and language arts. Students who need intervention will be able to receive targeted intervention. Students who don't need deficit gap filling can also participate in enrichment activities. So transportation has never been provided, and just as a reminder that the options available are contingent still upon if we have available personnel and how many students actually register. Something just shared with me prior to the meeting I thought was worth noting here is that on Monday, our crochet club donated $2,500 to the Jamestown Family Cancer Care from the items that they've made in their club. So it's kind of a neat thing. The job description for the library and digital media specialist is in the agenda. I know if you have a paper handout at hand that the attachments aren't there, you can pull it easily up on your phone if you wanted to. But I'll go ahead and try to address some of the questions that I heard here this evening. One is that the Jamestown Area Foundation has agreed to pay for the position, in their words, in perpetuity. So there was not an end date. The expectation was it would be ongoing. They have, I don't know all the specific details, but they have more money than they have had previously. And their proposal to the district was to think big regarding how we could expand STEM experiences for students and staff outside of, I think primarily, if not only, at the high school. So in addition to which you'll also see on the agenda tonight, to the $80,000 that they have donated to continue to contribute to our programming at the high school, whether it be digital media, art, engineering, etc. So in addition to that 80,000, again, they are willing to fund this position. Just to hit some of the highlights, again, the attachment is in the agenda, but some of the highlights of the position and why it's an admin position is that currently in our 3 library spaces, there are building aides. So to some extent, they are supervising those building aides in conjunction with the building principal. So just the very nature of the supervision of other personnel, that item alone, among others, obviously in the job description. It is not a position that would eliminate any staff. So there is no thought process or plans for eliminating staff. Just in general, I guess, just to give an overview, I do have a copy here. This is going to be wordy, as you can see, it's a 2-pager. The description, the library and digital media, I said specialist, I should have said coordinator. Library and digital media coordinator provides leadership to the district's library, media center, and makerspace labs. So the intention is not to get rid of books. In fact, the library even still lives in the title, and that was intentional, and that the suggestion is not that we're replacing books with all digital materials, but to look at our libraries as to make sure that they are relevant learning spaces. That still include text, but that also include appropriate digital media. We know we offer classes already, especially at our high school, and even some still at our middle school, that like we're not thinking about eliminating courses. This is really just an oversight, especially like I said in the beginning, not just at the high school, but throughout our district, to bring our library and our media spaces to more relevant. That may include, again, a lot of it's gonna depend on the person too, in terms of like the vision as what, like the first, like item of business, if you will. Does that look like maybe improving the aesthetics? Does it look like including more makerspace, as I heard, activities? There are labs that are connected to those libraries, like at the middle school, there is a lab right now, we're gifted. That's where Mrs. Godlove, that's where her home base is. At the high school, there is an engineering lab associated with that. So again, just kind of thinking about like, can some makerspace activities be a part of those two spaces? So, and again, just for providing like leadership to teachers, professional learning in terms of how they can, like, if they're not as familiar with how to use a drone. So I would be a good example of that, but yet there could be some really creative ways in which you can incorporate technology in the classroom. Then again, thinking about an administrative role that could work with a teacher on how that looks like. Other ideas about being in the library when students come to the library, to be able to help and facilitate with how students can use materials, digital media in the library. Another reason for it to be administrative is that this person, part of the requirement would also be to provide professional learning to all staff, administrators included, on how that the instructional tech pieces can marry with teaching and learning. So I don't know if I covered all the pieces or enough, but those are some of the things that I heard in Mr. Huck's questions. Facilities. So one of the things that, you know, we will not do tonight at the April board meeting, but whether it be in the future at our May regular board meeting or maybe even in June, is we need to discuss really how we want to move forward with the ballot issue. So I know that the people are wondering kind of what comes next. What does November look like? So I think it would be good for us to have some discussion about what that could look like as we move forward. We're at the final stages of a rekey project for the district. And so we are fine tuning down to the detail in terms of we know where every lock in the district is, including the locks on our sheds, and the way in which we are going to organize those keys, the names we're going to give them, who's going to have what access. So there's been an explicit amount of detail in that, working with the rekey company as well as Mr. Davis from a technology standpoint, software and inventory standpoint, as well as the maintenance team, and of course, Inga and myself, and then also in collaboration with the principals and athletic director on how they want that to look for their building or for their department. I do regret to inform you that we have pulled back on the high school vestibule project, really for a variety of reasons, but mostly due to cost and really the timeline of the project. We think that we can look at some other safety and security options that might be available to us, that might be more cost effective. And again, the timeline of the project really didn't work in terms of, I don't know if you have tried to hire a contractor for anything at your home, but if they are good, they are not available immediately for the summer. So that had a lot to do with it as well. We are working on making improvements still to the stadium field. In fact, we had a meeting today to talk about really the water supply that is needed to make sure that the field, I think everyone knows about our grass situation, how sensitive, I guess I would say, bless you, that it is. So we are working to get guidance on really what we can do in terms of seeding or reseeding or fertilizing, but also like what we can do about the water supply. The field does not get enough water. And mostly that has to do with our ability to draw water, like the well, to be able to draw water into the tank. So we think that maybe a larger tank, and a way in which we can store water could be helpful. But it's quite a conundrum because there's only so much water you can pull from the well. So anyway, that project is ongoing. And we're trying to troubleshoot really what we need to do. So I know of conversations, so this will kind of maybe marry a few things that, there's been conversation about ESSER dollars that have been spent, or not spent, and what a large portion of what has not been spent is a little over 1.1 million, which you may remember, was held back intentionally by the district to offset the cost of the athletic field house or the athletic facilities portion of the ballot issue. I'm not sure when those dollars were distributed, but they were allocated in 21-22. There were various rounds of ESSER dollars. On this particular round, that million was set aside intentionally 21-22 to address ventilation. So the way that the way that COVID money, if you will, in a capital improvement project. So they were set aside for capital improvements. And you might ask, well, how could ESSER money or how could COVID money be set aside for a capital improvement? Because if it was related to heating, cooling, ventilation, anything sanitary, then it would meet the criteria for capital improvement. Those projects have to be approved by the feds as well. So again, that happened in 21-22. The field house was specifically the target of those dollars too, for reasons that have been discussed about the conditions of our field house, especially heating, cooling, and ventilation and the restroom situation. So those dollars were locked in there, and then again folded into the ballot issue to offset costs. Obviously, being unsuccessful in March, and with timelines on ESSER dollars, those dollars need to be encumbered, obligated, same word, by September of 25. So it puts us on a very tight timeline to determine how we want to spend $1.1 million that, again, it's locked in, have to specifically be spent on heating, cooling, ventilation, restrooms associated with the athletic field house. Again, the feds they approved a plan. So where we have landed is that we also wanted to make sure that what we do with those dollars that are associated with the athletic facilities do not impede the future vision of the goal of having our athletic facilities and what was presented through the ballot issue, over on one relatively centralized campus on Cottonville Road. So what could that look like that, again, isn't impeding on what could happen in November, what could ultimately happen in the future? And so the conversation led to, again, some of the biggest pieces about the field house were that multiple programs are sharing space and the inadequacy, if you will, of the field house. So what made sense with the money allotted was that we would be able to offer wrestling a dedicated space at the high school that would, right now, it's penciled in, it's still in the planning stages. Right now if you think about where the gym is and where like the ag room is, there's kind of like an L. If you happen to be a part of or remember the CAT conversations, originally we even kind of talked about like that would be a nice little space maybe for an auxiliary gym space-ish. So also what you can get for 1.1 million, again, working with consultants at SHP to ask candidly, what will 1.1 million get you? And so working with them, what it could get us is a wrestling space that is, again, these are penciled in drawings, but I want to be clear about the unspent dollars. Would be a space that is about the size of what wrestling has now. I believe it's somewhere, I think it's 40 by 63, actually. We think we could also get 2 locker rooms and a restroom. Candidly, the difficult part is the restroom. Restrooms are very expensive. Restrooms are very expensive because you have to get plumbing to them and you have to get sewage out of them. So that is the piece where it's like, can we do this? Can we not do this? We also, why the restroom, when you've got restrooms right beside in, the high school, is because wrestling and high school, they share the same season, as you know. And so we wanted to make sure that a wrestling space could function separately or independently if there, say, is an event or practice going on at the high school. So it would not be connected, actually, it would be like its own separate building, so to speak. Then the thought too was, if it was a space like that, then even in the future, whatever the future holds, it could be a wrestling space for now, it could be a multi-purpose space later. But who knows what the future holds, but it is non-specific enough that it could be, it could be used differently if we were to have another athletic space or an athletic complex. Could be school related, could be non-school related, I can't speculate. So in our mind, that was the best use of the dollars that we had. Yes, it is for a dedicated sport right now. I understand that. It doesn't mean that it couldn't be used for other reasons throughout the day or in the future. Just the same as we talked about with the athletic facility or the athletic field house, where it could serve multiple purposes. You could have a meeting out there. Again, if it's separate space, it's got a restroom. So beyond wrestling, that there are other reasons or there are other ways in which the facility could be used. So,
that opens
Pardon my
up
long-windedness.
benefits for the other sports that use that.
yes.
What about in that money, will it address any of the needs over there? The
So-
restrooms,
Uh-huh.
the concessions,
In my perfect world, that there will still be dollars left over. So that we could do some like immediate things that I think about in our field house right now are, and I don't know, you may remember actually last year around this time, looking at the ways to ventilate those spaces, which turned out to be very expensive. Quotes that went from anywhere from $70,000 to $90,000. So that didn't work out. So then we were kind of thinking about maybe at least large fans, right? That would keep the air circulating. I also think that, I'm hopeful we can use some of those dollars to address the plumbing issues. There are plumbing issues in the existing field house. So they're very sensitive. So again, in a perfect world, about, maybe about $1 million on the wrestling space. And then we have additional dollars that we could use to improve what not cosmetically, but, it's a dance, right? To make sure that it's adequate. But that we also are responsible about the dollars or good steward.
I have a question, and maybe
yeah.
maybe this is just silly semantics,
I doubt it.
but are people, do you think people are getting hung up on the fact that you're calling it a wrestling space? I mean, is there a reason it has to be called that? Like a gymnasium isn't called like a basketball. But that's where basketball is gonna be played.
Right.
Like, is there anything that we could think about as far as like trying to label it something where, like, yes, it's going to be dedicated for the wrestlers during wrestling season.
Yes.
But is
yes.
there a way to like talk about the facility in a more broad way?
I think she already.
Yeah, I
addressed
think
it
that's
with
absolutely
multi-purpose.
fair. My multi-purpose.
Right. Yes, we talked about it, but I mean, that's not not necessarily how it's being presented. So I'm just curious if there was if we did that, or is that gonna cause issues like, well, it has to be fair for everybody, so wrestling can't have it. But I mean, I think we could make that determination, right?
We're so short on space. I feel like everything's fair game.
Just
so.
curious, like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
Awards
know.
banquets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, meetings or large meetings that are obviously, this is our dedicated board meeting space, or this is where I hold meetings candidly, but there are no conference rooms. So there's
Right.
no privacy here. So,
Mhm.
being able to test students in large batches outside of, and then not break up the rate. I think, thinking about today, that just came to mind. And then the building can run maybe on a regular schedule while kids are
Yeah.
adjusting, or
Yeah.
I do just like the conversation with the ballot issue. I think that as broad as we can, but candidly, yeah, it did start with, okay,
Yeah,
we
that's,
were not
that's the impetus.
successful.
Yeah,
What are our problems here?
yeah.
And so,
Plus you have the earmarking of the dollars.
yeah.
No,
so-
and I totally agree with it.
Yeah,
I just think I'm thinking if, you know, that way it doesn't seem like it's
Mhm.
just for this one small purpose.
Yeah.
Not saying that wrestling, not to, wrestling is awesome here and we have a great wrestling
Yeah.
program and, but I feel like that could be seen better by the public potentially, right? Like,
And
Again.
again, and I have to give credit to especially Mr. Kavner, who was insistent, like, it needs a restroom. So it needs a restroom so that it can function independently. And it
Sure.
doesn't, it could be, it could be rented out space for whatever on the
Right.
weekend, and then you're not in the high school.
yeah,
The traffic's not in the high school, it can be its own separate, and think pole barnish. I don't have a better word than that. And it's just kind of like a pole barnish type,
got it,
space
yeah.
with a restroom and 2 locker rooms and maybe an office that's like this big. So someone can make a phone call in
Right,
privacy.
right.
So I really think for the amount of money, we've really got a good plan.
It sounds like a great plan.
And so, yeah, I appreciate the question. Actually, are there any other questions about it or comments that
I mean, I just
fit
think
here or?
the traffic relief of all the stuff right there in that building is gonna help tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah, there's more parking over there too. We talked about that. We looked at other spaces at the high school too, that maybe we could reimagine. But there's not much reimagining. We need all the space, as you guys know, that we have. But if not a wrestling space, like a batting cage could go out. So even back to sports. So there's just, I think, a lot of possibility about what just having an independent space could offer the district beyond wrestling during their season sharing.
So maybe more a multi-purpose athletic space instead of,
Mhm.
because wrestling, when
Yeah.
you say wrestling, everything's okay, it's one season, I know for a lot
Yeah.
of people
Yeah,
in the same
Right.
thing.
And
Maybe-
candidly favoritism, like that's really,
Maybe 2 restrooms and one
Yeah.
more. Just throwing that out there.
What do you mean?
Girls and boys.
Boys, you've got one bathroom.
this.
You're paying for plumbing.
Mhm.
Or 2.
So, all right, let me see where I was. That was worth the time. I think that's. And I already talked about, I moved the order, I wanted to address the job description out of the gate, so I think that concludes actually my superintendent's update.
I had one more question for you on
Okay.
the job description. Mr. Hook had asked, if you saw this, position being a teaching position. Are they gonna be teaching actual
Actual
Classes?
classes, if they were in a classroom or even in the library, it would be a way to enhance, facilitate, collaborate with the person who is already there. So whether that be the aide that is already in charge of the library space currently, or whether that be, I'm gonna go tag team with Mr. Hook to do a science project and I'm in the room. And so, yes, you may be teaching, but it is not an isolated.
not like a designated class?
Yes.
that they'll be running.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing that he asked that I had written down that I didn't know specifically here was like where they would be housed. And I don't know if you have thought about that yet. And it sounds like they'd be moving a lot. Sounds like they'd be moving a lot with all.
Again, yeah, so in my head, there's a schedule in which you spend a certain period of time in the day at the middle school. And there's a certain period of time that you spend at the high school, plugging in, like, where can you have outreach? I think the right person really shapes and molds what this looks like, but like many other of our administrators, Mr. Davis, his home base is at the middle school, but he floats throughout the district. Mrs. McCarty, our special ed coordinator, she is housed at the middle school and she floats throughout the district because our office spaces tend to be at the middle school where we have space. That is not Home base has not been determined yet. And again, as you can see, there's not designated office spaces in this building. So by default, we have to look to our buildings to find home bases.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. Agenda item 5, new business. Approved job description for the library and digital media coordinator. B, approve the updated administrative salary schedule for the 2024-2025 school year. C, approve the following student for payment in lieu of transportation for the 2023-2024 school year. Gavin Sarvello, STEAM Academy in Xenia, Ohio. Approve Student Protective Agency, Inc. as the student insurance carrier for the 2024-2025 school year. E, approve the MOU between Greeneview Schools and the Greeneview Education Association regarding wages for summer school teachers for summer of 2024. F, approve Greeneview High School course catalog for 2024-2025. G, approve new business items A through F as presented.
I would just mention that the reason that the administrative salary schedule is on the agenda is because we had to add the library and digital media coordinator to that. While I was in there, updated the special education supervisor to its appropriate job title based on the job description, which is special education coordinator. And although we do not have a curriculum coordinator, adjusted the number of days and salary range to parallel the special education supervisor, so it's more consistent with what it should be. That particular position had the largest number of days, which is out of whack with, in my opinion, like what that should be. But again, we do not have a curriculum coordinator, but while we were touching the administrative salary schedule, we adjusted that to be more relevant to what the position would or could be.
Is this, course catalog, is it the same?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
nothing new.
I can't. I know that the high school is considering, and I might get the name wrong, an aerospace course. So it may be the new, that's the only thing I can think of at this time.
Any other thoughts or questions?
I move.
Mrs. Connor?
Yes.
Oh, were you not ready?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I was still reading something. I
Oh.
couldn't get this MOU to open on my laptop at home, and so I was just reading it.
Oh,
So I couldn't,
And we
it
do
would not
an,
open at my house.
just because you're new, we do an MOU because that rate, is approved every year, at least that I've been here, that summer school has been funded through a grant and we've been able to pay teachers, but I think a reasonable and appropriate rate that would be larger, maybe, so that this, to continue paying them the rate of $50 an hour. We have we have that agreement with the GEA. And again, it's grant funded again, but this time through the Reaching All Students and Literacy Grant. So we're fortunate to be able to do that with grant dollars again.
Yeah, for some reason, everything else opened at my house, but that one didn't. So I'm trying to figure it out.
I think I fixed it.
Yeah, it's a PDF now. It was something else.
Yeah.
And I could not open it. Like,
It's a wonky doc. Okay, sorry.
sorry.
Okay, so Scott, you made the motion,
Right,
My second.
and Suzanne did the second, okay. Mrs. Connor,
Yeah.
Mr. Powers,
yeah,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Arthur,
Yes.
and Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 6, personnel. Approve the following classified substitutes for the 2023-2024 school year. Carol Collins, custodian and summer help. Paul Thompson, summer help. Margie Buckwalter, summer help. Nikki Buck, summer help. Laura Hanson, summer help. Carol Adams White, summer help. Joshua Dodge, summer help. Be it approved the following certified substitute teachers for the 2023-2024 school year contingent upon proper certification, background check, and completion of required paperwork. Gabriel Bridges. C, approve the following administrative contract recommendations. Jim Arrigo, 2-year, Billy Baker, 2-year, Bill Hayes, 1-year, retire, rehire, Neil Kasner, 3-year, Mark Reinhardt, 2-year, Mike tie 3-year. D, approve an administrative contract for Peyton Fisher District School Psychologist, 1-year limited contract effective August 1st, 2024 for the 2024-2025 school year at a salary in accordance with approved administrative salary schedule. E, approve the resignation of Wendy Callowart, middle school principal, effective July 31st, 2024. F, approve the resignation of Chase Held, intervention specialist at middle school, effective June 30th, 2024. G, approve the resignation of Emily Horn, intervention specialist at middle school, effective June 30th, 2024. H, approve cooperating teacher stipend for Paul Thompson for $300 from Wright State University. I, approve personnel items A through H as presented.
I'll move.
Second.
Mr. Powers.
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mrs. Connor.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Board members, I'd also just like to share with you that Mrs. Ms. Peyton Fisher is here with us this evening. She received her BA in psychology from the University of Cincinnati and her ed specialist in school psychology degree from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and her internship this year as at Lebanon City Schools. So we welcome you to Greeneview Local Schools and look forward to having you on board with our team.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yay.
Agenda item number 7 for discussion only. A, updated board policies for review. B, board member updates. So we will start with item A.
The only thing that I wanted to share is that this year, Mrs. Fisher and I have spent the entire year reviewing literally, all of our board policies, and we met on an ongoing basis. So wanted to share those with you. If you happen to have any questions tonight, I'm happy to answer them. They will be on the board agenda in May for your approval. So just wanted to share those with you, and that's really all I had. If you don't have any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
We thank you
So
for
I-
your work.
Yeah.
And it looks like I was gonna,
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, but it looks like I just opened the one. You did like cross out and so
Yes.
if there's changes.
Yes, it's in
That's really-
color
thank you.
and
It's
yeah,
very helpful.
That
It
is
very
super helpful.
Yeah, I like the way that
It's very
program
helpful to
works.
do that.
learned how to do that. Yeah, those weren't exactly like that, maybe even a year ago, but we figured out how to do
It still
it.
crosses your eyes at 12
Uh-huh.
night.
Yeah.
I can get to these.
The other thing that I would point out is when you open them, if you look at the top, it might say like rescinded. So it'd tell you if we took it out completely, or it might say like PO 1130 new, which means we didn't have it. So there's another little nugget beyond the just what is colored or is
Yeah.
striking out, what we took out or maybe what we put in entirely.
So are we going to, going forward, have them, chunked together rather than, all at once? If they absolutely all needed reviewed, I might have been the one to start that they all needed reviewed. But to have them on a regular schedule so we can ensure they're relevant and
Yeah.
accurate.
Yes, so what is normal practice actually is that we look at policies twice a year. So we work with Neola, who are consultants, and they come out first semester, they call them the fall and winter updates, but I call it first semester and second semester. So they come to us and say, hey, these are the new laws and these are the implications to your policies. And usually what you see is maybe 10 or 15, not this. And I couldn't just drop a folder. The program would only allow them to be individual in the box.
But for our other ones that aren't affected by new laws, how often will we be kind of reviewing those? Like, are they gonna be on a regular schedule? Cause I'm concerned that we'll get policies that are, sitting in our board policies for 10 years that haven't been touched.
I think probably what first comes to mind is something like a curriculum cycle, that you do it every 3 years, you do it every 5 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think
I
that's.
think probably 5 years is more appropriate. Maybe.
Okay, that sounds good. Board member update?
Yes, I was just gonna share some things from
Yeah.
the Career Center. They're doing this program called Lean Six Sigma Have you heard of it? Okay, it's like a team-focused managerial approach. It seeks to improve performance by eliminating resource waste and defects. There are phases of Lean Six Sigma. They are define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And they're used to identify and improve existing processes. The Lean Six Sigma helps with industry credentials. Some of the students have trouble having enough graduation credentials, and so they go through this program, and it helps them get enough credentialing for graduation. This year, they're gonna be 250 to 300 students that will use that Lean Six program, so. And it's kind of interesting, like for different levels, they earn a belt. Go white, yellow, green, black, belt. So it's pretty cool. Mock prom was held last week for special needs kids. And the cosmetology students do hair and makeup for the kids that come in. Isn't that great? And then the culinary arts students prepare the food, and it is wonderful. I know that because before every Greene County Career Center board meeting, they feed us dinner.
Yeah.
I told my daughter I was on my way to a board meeting, my West Virginia daughter, and she said, "Is this the one where they feed you dinner?" I said, "No, not this one."
Sorry.
On May the 4th, so the culinary arts, does have like a restaurant type. Like you can go, like if you work in Xenia, you can go and have lunch there, and it's awesome. There's gonna be a car show in the Greene County Career Center parking lot on Saturday, May the 4th, and culinary arts will be providing food that day. You can purchase food, and cosmetology students will be available to do hair. You can book appointments. I think you can book appointments throughout the week anyway, if you would like to. Lily Wright, one of our Greeneview students, came and presented at the last board meeting. She's one of the cosmetology students. It's an intensive program that requires 1,500 hours of work. And she has finished that up. She takes her exams May 1st and will be licensed to work at any salon. The students that go through that cosmetology program don't have any other training. When they come out of that program and take their exams, they're licensed to work in a salon. There's no other schooling they have to do. Greene County Career Center was highlighted in 2 articles in the local paper about their outreach to elementary students in the county. A meeting was held with Lieutenant Governor Husted concerning the workforce initiative and the need for $1.2 million in funding for equipment. A proposal was made to Senator Hackett requesting $18 million for a public safety initiative. This would include training for firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, and dispatchers, and there would be a burn tower. That's kind of an exciting thing that might happen. The district is also hopeful to receive a grant for $107,000 for the virtual reality equipment in their adult ed program. And all the graduating cadets from the police academy passed the state test this year. So, yeah, thank you.
Any questions?
Any other board discussion?
Okay. So for May, we'll plan on, open discussion on the ballot issue.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to extend an invitation for public participation on any non-agenda items.
You might not allow this because it's an agenda item, but it wasn't one that was voted on with all the PDFs, the policies. I just had a question. I actually, in the last 2 days, went through and read every one of them that got adjusted. I left my notes at my classroom, but the one that strikes me, and I don't remember which one it is. It had accelerating students, and that was all scratched out. I don't know if it's turning into a different policy that I didn't see. But like, I know we have some students, like my son was one we accelerated in a subject area and advanced him a grade. So,
It's in another spot. It was redundant. It's in multiple places.
okay, because I didn't see it in any of these other ones that are given here.
I can't, one, I'll double check it because we are human, but 2, I will find where it is or where it should be. for
Okay,
sure.
I figured it must have been.
Yeah, I'm not
to
gonna.
To go somewhere else, but I didn't see it in any of these policies.
Okay.
As we review, we'll keep an eye out on that. Any other public participation? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move.
Can I get a second? Yes,
Mrs. Smith,
yes.
Mrs. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mrs. Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
Yep.
Adjourned at 6:45.
Didn't Joe